Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack a truly fascinating fable all about discovering time's hidden value. We talk constantly about wealth and productivity and success, but we so rarely actually stop to examine the fundamental currency that drives literally all of it, and that's time. This story, which comes from a classic motivational tale, beautifully illustrates a lesson that is incredibly simple to understand, yet somehow remarkably difficult to master in our everyday lives. So let me hook you right out of the gate with a question, and I want you to genuinely think about this for a second. How much is 1 hour of your life worth? Like, if you had to put a strict monetary price tag on your next 60 minutes, what would that exact number be? It's a pretty tough exercise, right? Well, that difficulty in quantifying our own time perfectly sets the stage for our story today, which is all about a worried father and his deeply careless son. All right, so here is our initial setup. Once upon a time, in a small village, there lived a man who was growing increasingly worried about his son. This boy was notoriously lazy, totally careless. He never worked. Instead, he'd just kind of wander around the village, letting his days slip away with absolutely nothing to show for them. The father, seeing all this potential just wasting away, knew he needed to intervene. But actually, rather than just yelling or giving him a boring lecture, the father came up with this incredibly clever plan to teach his son a memorable, life-altering lesson. So the father devises his first tangible test. He calls his son over and gives him a very specific set of instructions. First, he tells the boy to go fetch a watch kept inside their cupboard. Second, he tells him to take that physical watch right down to the local market. And third, he instructs his son to show the watch to everyone he meets and ask them how much they think it's worth. Basically, it was a simple task of appraising the monetary value of a physical object. The son, who was probably a little puzzled, just nodded and went on his way. Well, the results brilliantly illustrate a core economic truth. The boy goes to the market, and the appraisals he gets vary wildly. One person looks at the watch and says, "Hey, that's worth 500 rupees." Someone else examines it and claims it's worth 800 rupees. Another person steps up and offers 1,000 rupees. Literally everyone gave a different price. So the boy returns home and tells his dad that no one could completely agree on the price. Basically, the physical object had a highly subjective value depending entirely on who was looking at it. Hearing this, the father just kind of smiles, tells his son to put the watch back in the cupboard, and lets him go rest. But the very next day, the father initiates the second test. And this is where we get a brilliant twist. He calls his son, asks him to bring out that exact same watch, and sends him right back to the bustling market. But this time around, he gives the boy a new, highly unusual instruction. The father looks right at his son and asks this totally perplexing question. He says, "This time, don't ask the price of the watch. Ask people the price of the time inside this watch." I mean, it's totally bizarre, isn't it? The boy was immediately confused. He had absolutely no idea what his dad really meant, but he obeyed anyway. Just imagine the narrative tension here. A young boy holding up a watch in a busy market, trying to figure out how to ask strangers to price a completely invisible, intangible concept. As you can probably guess, when he actually started asking about the time inside the watch, the friction and embarrassment were intense. The villagers' reactions were incredibly harsh. People looked at him strangely. Some just outright laughed in his face. Others angrily told him to go away, dismissing him completely. A lot of people just called the whole question foolish. Trying to price an intangible concept made him an immediate object of ridicule, leaving the poor boy feeling, well, incredibly sad and embarrassed. But then, the story introduces its wise figure. Totally defeated, the boy finally stops at a small shop. Inside is an old shopkeeper, a watchmaker who's busy repairing watches. When the boy nervously approaches and asks his strange, embarrassing question one last time, the old man doesn't laugh. He actually pauses his work. He looks at the boy with a kind smile and takes a moment to truly listen, because he immediately understood exactly what the boy was trying to ask. The old man looks at the boy and speaks softly, and I actually want to slow down and read this exact quote to you because it is the absolute heart of our explainer today. He says, "Son, you cannot put a price on time. You can give millions of rupees, but you cannot buy back even 1 second of your life." Wow. Just let that profound realization sink in for a moment. All the money in the world, literally millions of rupees, is utterly powerless against the passing of a single second. The watchmaker continued, breaking it down into a really brilliant contrast. Basically, the bad thing is that time inevitably passes. It slips away whether you want it to or not. You can't stop it. But the good thing is, you absolutely have the power to choose how you spend it. We can't control the flow of time, sure, but we have total agency over how we utilize it while it's here. Now, what's really fascinating here is how this truth acts as the ultimate universal equalizer. Think about the massive divide between the rich and the poor. A wealthy person might have millions and millions of rupees, while a poor person might have exactly zero. The financial wealth differs drastically. But everyone in this world, no matter who they are, is granted the exact same 24 hours in a day. The watchmaker explained that the only real difference in this world is how people actively choose to use those 24 hours. As the boy listened carefully to all this, a dramatic transformation took place. His eyes just filled with understanding. Something deep inside him finally clicked. He thanked the old man profusely and hurried straight home to tell his father everything that had happened. The father just smiled with pride and placed a hand on his son's shoulder. And from that exact day forward, the boy completely abandoned his lazy habits. He started working hard, he stopped wandering around wasting his days, because he finally understood the real, irreplaceable value of every single moment. So the crucial takeaway here is this. Time is free, but it is absolutely priceless. It's the ultimate non-renewable resource. As the story teaches us, you cannot buy it, but you can certainly use it. You cannot keep it, but you can definitely spend it. And once it's gone, you can never, ever get it back. That means you absolutely must spend it wisely. You really have to treat it with the respect it demands. Which brings us to the end of our explainer today, and I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. You have a fresh deposit of time coming your way right now. So how will you spend your next 24 hours? Will you just let them inevitably pass by, kind of like the boy wandering aimlessly around the village? Or will you actively apply the watchmaker's wisdom and choose to spend them on something meaningful? The choice, as always, is entirely yours. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. And hey,